Alex Pereira bought his parents a new house. Alex posted this to X. He wrote, Photo 1, 4 years ago having lunch at my parents' house. Photo 2, they're home today. Thank you very much, my God. Islam Makhachev and Ilia Topuria have been going back and forth for the past few months. In a recent interview with Match TV, Islam says that when they come face to face, they will have a talk, and if Ilia wants to fight, they will. Islam said we'll definitely have some kind of conversation with him. He talks about me all the time. He probably wants to get something across. Let's go out and talk. We'll fight if necessary. Ian Garry is furious that the fight with Colby Covington never materialized due to the fact that Colby made multiple videos talking about Ian's wife. Ian says that he thinks Joaquin Buckley will starch Colby in their upcoming fight later this month. Speaking to Ariel Helwani, Ian said, I was seething. How do you think I feel? Because I've been screaming and shouting about fighting that man from the rafters. This man's made videos about me, my wife, my kids, talking about all this shit. And here's this man avoiding me like the plague. And the second I book in against the scariest man in the division, he's like, oh, I'll fight in Florida. It just proves, it just shows that he's a coward, that he wants nothing to do with me. The truth is, I already know I've beaten him. I know I've already mentally beaten him. He's weak. He's an absolute coward. And I believe he's going to go out there and get absolutely steamrolled by Joaquin Buckley. I think Buckley starches him. I understand the type of person Colby Covington is. He is someone who is trying to stay relevant by calling out the people that are generating traction. Myself, Shavkat, Bilal Muhammad, even Charles Oliveira at one point. He was saying he wanted to fight Charles. These are all to keep relevance to his name because his stock is plummeting so low because no one cares about him anymore. I want that fight because of how much trash he talked. But I'm well aware when I beat Shavkat on Saturday night, it's me being booked against Bilal Muhammad for the world title in 2025. I'm going to go out there and win that world title. And Colby Covington is far, far, far in the rearview mirror. Michael Bisping discusses the recent back and forth he had with Jamahal Hill. It started with Bisping saying that Jamahal was a bit of a sore loser after his loss to Alex Pereira. He added that it was because Jamahal is such a competitor and will use it as motivation for his upcoming fight against Jiri Prochazka. Jamahal responded on X. He wrote, Bisping calling me a sore loser and talking about as men on losing is the craziest ever to me. Bro, you've been crying and salty about Dan Henderson for 20 years and Vitor Belfort for 15 years. You would think spending half your career losing you would know how to. On the Believe You Me podcast, Bisping says Jamal's response did actually bother him, and it was a total misunderstanding.
If you say someone's a sore loser, I don't know if you saw this.
Oh, no.
Jamahal Hill.
Oh. Did he comment to you?
He did. He came at me on Twitter. I'm not talking shit. I've got nothing but love for Jamahal. I think he's tremendous. I think he's a great guy. He's misunderstood. He's angry. He's mad. We were talking about him and we said that he was a little bit of a sore loser, but that's beneficial to a fighter. Yeah, I mean, I take it all with a pinch of salt. It's like water off a duck's back to me at this point. I've had so much shit over the years. These days, for the most part, it's complimentary. But the negativity, that doesn't bother me. It did bother me a little bit from Jamahal because I respect Jamahal, and I think he's obviously just misunderstood me. So that's why I said to him, let me just read my tweet out. I said, did you watch what I said or did you read a headline? If it's a headline, I'll accept your apology, smiley face. I said you were a bit of a sore loser because you're a true competitor. I then went on to explain how if that energy is channeled correctly, it can be beneficial to a fighter's mindset. I wasn't talking I was being nice. Didn't have you down as the easily offended type. Have a great camp. So yeah, I'm not trying to talk about Jamahal. We weren't talking. We weren't talking.
No.
Taking losses personally and fueling you, that's what you're supposed to do as a fighter. Yeah, it's all well and good. You want to be a sportsman, you want to be respectful and all the rest of it, but you also want that fire inside you to say, I am going to right these wrongs. I am going to get my belt back. I am going to get revenge, vengeance, whatever you want to call it. So if that's how you fuel yourself, more power to you. Just go out, have a great camp, and best of luck against Jiri.
Ciryl Gane reflects on his loss to Jon Jones. The two fought last March, and Gane tapped to a guillotine choke just 2 minutes into the fight. He went on to say, when I look back at it, it was obvious that I was not there. It represented exactly how I felt on the day of the fight. It was a total misunderstanding of what was happening. I don't recognize myself there. It's something I've never done in my life. I've never fought that way before. My distance management, my movement, the alertness that I love to show, I had none of that. Looking back, I think that this experience may have been beneficial. For me personally, it helped me to refocus on myself. It gave me a spirit of revenge, a competitive spirit. Kamaru Usman and Henry Cejudo both think that Anthony Smith will beat Dominick Reyes this weekend at UFC 310.
Both 6'4", both light heavyweights. both around the same age, both around the same reach. As Mike Goldberg would say, everything is virtually identical here. Here we go. I like this fight, Henry. I like this fight, and I'm just going to have to go with Dominick Reyes is coming off of a big win in his last fight, and I think it was one that definitely energized him because he needed it. If we look at that last performance that he had.
God, 38-20, Anthony Smith?
Yeah, Anthony Smith has been fighting before. While I was in college wrestling, Anthony Smith was already fighting. And so, coming off that big last fight, I think that energized Dominick Reyes to where we might see the Dominick Reyes of old. But in this fight, I'm gonna have to go with the veteran savviness of Anthony Smith.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna agree with you. I think he has a lot of tools, man, in his bag. And I think Anthony's just a grinder, dude. Dominic's so accustomed to being on his feet that you just don't know. But either way, bro, I really don't care on that one. But I'll go Anthony Smith.
Aljamain Sterling thinks Ian Garry will pull off the upset against Shavkat Rakhmonov this weekend.
Ian and Shavkat.
Yeah. That should be a barn burner too. Maybe not a barn burner. I think it's gonna be a very technical fight. But
you said you think Ian could. You favor Ian in that one.
I lean towards Ian.
That's interesting.
I lean towards Ian Garry.
Why?
I just think because he's familiar with him. I don't know if he's still training with the shoot box guys. I think he has really good control management of the distance. And I mean, for him to beat a guy like MVP who's hard to get a hold of. I mean, it wasn't the most exciting fight, but he did what he had to do to win. I think he knows how to win. And I think he might outpoint him.
Tom Aspinall believes Jon Jones is playing negotiation games in regards to a fight between the two. Tom says that it's high-level business. Speaking to UFC on TNT, Tom said day one, as a professional UFC fighter, if someone asks you about some other opponent and you're fighting, say I'm fighting Adam this weekend. If somebody asks me, what about this guy, this other guy who's not involved, I'll say, right, I'm going to get past Adam and then we'll speak about him. Jon didn't do that. Jon immediately started saying, no, I don't want to fight Tom, which the easiest thing in the world would be, just I'm going to talk about it after Saturday. But he kept bringing that into the conversation. That is high-level business, really high level. Ian Garry claims that back when him and Shavkat Rakhmonov used to train together, Shavkat called him a future UFC champion. The two are set to fight this weekend at UFC 310. Ian is a plus 300 underdog, and Shavkat is a minus 380 favorite. Ian went on to say, when I got there, Shavkat was training there as well. Me and Shavkat have trained a lot together. I think he's a phenomenal fighter. Henry Hoof told me that Shavkat Rakhmonov and him had a conversation, and he said, Shavkat knows you're going to be the champion one day, but he says me first and him later. So it's unfortunate that one of us is going to have to lose, and I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that he's not getting his hand raised. There are humans walking around this earth that have just been gifted talent, and I believe that I'm one of them. When it comes to confidence, you need to be able to tell the world what you're going to do and go do it. My goal in fighting is to leave behind a legacy where it's unarguable that I am one of the greatest of all time. My rise has been perfect so far, but there's so much more to come, and it's the future that excites me. I'm ready. I was born ready for this opportunity. I'm telling you now, Saturday I'm going to beat Shavkat. Jorge Masvidal says despite fighting Nate Diaz twice and getting heated with him during their press conferences, he actually likes Nate. Jorge also gives an update on his UFC return.
For the thick and thin and all the bullshit we went through at the press conference and the fight, I've always liked Nate outside of the fighting. Inside of the fighting, obviously, bro, who's not a fan of this guy? He's all heart all the time, you know? He might not have the best technique, but man, does he get after it, and he puts everything. He has no regard for his health, you know, when he's fighting. So I've always been a big fan of Nate, but obviously when it's fight time, I'm trying to bust whoever it is.
Oh, you guys had two great fights. Like both, awesome fights. And you guys sold out without the UFC promoting it. You guys sold out with like 19,000 people in the boxing fight. That was lit.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And we moved the date like 4 or 5 times, so it was like, it's nuts, man. For a second, we were like, maybe it's not so good they moved it so many days, but it turned out fine, bro.
I was worried about it, but it shows you guys have star power. I was like, oh, I hope this thing does well. And it went in there. It was just packed.
Especially in California, you know. Nate's got a huge following, obviously. I got a very big following with the Latin community. I knew we were going to do well.
Find you.
Sure, well, I'll be back April next year in the UFC. Yes, sir. We don't have the opponent yet. Yes, sir. Hopefully by December, we got the opponent. In April, Miami card.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Michael Chandler seems to be interested in a fight against Jorge Masvidal upon his UFC return. Chandler reposted this. It says, forget McGregor. Call out Jorge Masvidal for a fight. Chandler wrote, where you at, Jorge? Jorge responded to Chandler. He wrote, say word and it's go. April, Miami. Khamzat Chimaev fired back at Ian Garry today. In a recent interview ahead of UFC 310, Ian said he plans on becoming a two-weight champion, beating Khamzat and taking over the middleweight division. Ian said, I've said to you before how my ideal scenario is. I fight, I beat Shavkat Rakhmonov, I win the world title, I go to middleweight, and I fight Khamzat Chimaev. I win that belt too. I'm not afraid of any man. I know how talented I am. I know the gifts God gave me. I want to go out there and prove it against what people believe to be the best people in the world. That's what I'm here for. Khamzat responded to this via X. He wrote, at Ian Garry, you're too skinny, kid. Don't go near the wolf's teeth. You'll end up headless. And that's going to wrap it up for the news. Thanks for watching. For daily MMA news and content, subscribe to Full Mount MMA and click the bell icon to be notified when we post videos. Here are the 3 top comments from last video. The first one's from Kyle M2712. It says, to be honest, Dana does Aljo dirty all the time. Former defending champion on the prelims again, but Bo Nickel is always on the main card. The second one's from Logan J. Ross. It says, Usman stepped in on 9 days notice against Khamzat. Now people saying he's ducking. The short-term memory in this sport is wild. And the final one says, placing Aljo in the prelims is messed up, but if he performs like he did on UFC 300, then no one will care. Those were the 3 top comments from last video. If you want to be featured in the next one, all you have to do is comment down below. And if you missed yesterday's news, click the video on screen right now to get caught up.